So here we are, recovering from FanExpo Friday, which we just got back from not that long ago. And I don't know about you, but I am tired.
Definitely, although at least I experienced it more or less solo as opposed to having three kids to share in the experience.
Yeah, it's that's a topic for another time. But that is a crowded house at FanExpo.
And we should introduce ourselves.
We should.
That's how tired we are. We're not. Yeah.
I'm Greg.
No, wait. You're.
Wait, no. Wait,
I'm Greg,
and I'm Jeff.
and we're the GamerPops.
Hey. How's
And
it
we're
going?
back from FanExpo in Toronto, which is Canada's largest comic, superhero, gaming, anime, you name it. They've got it pretty much all of it in there,
It's pretty much everything now.
except for sports, which
Yeah.
they had last year, and it wasn't an ideal fit. So they dropped the sports, and looks like they ramped up the celebrities this year.
Yeah, which is good, including one John Saxon, which was probably my most stupidly thrilled part of the day. Whereas I just like scream, "Oh my God! Look, it's John Saxon!" And like maybe my wife got it, and nobody, and you may have got it, but nobody else really seemed to care. And I wanted to go down and get his autograph, but I didn't want to pay $50 for it. But I would have said, "I loved you in Mitchell," and then they would have had me thrown out.
John Saxon was the star of many a mediocre movie in the 70s for our folks listening in. But let's talk about things that were more relevant than faded movie stars trying to make a buck on the convention circuit. Hi, Richard Dreyfuss. You were there too.
Yeah, there were a lot of people there.
So an event like FanExpo, it's not quite on the scale of a Comic-Con or even a PAX Prime, I would think. But
Which is also going on right now.
But it's definitely up there, and it's a fun event. And because they put all of that stuff together, there's so much stuff going on. Like, we barely scratched the surface today, and
Yeah,
we're both exhausted as a result.
Yeah, because we hit the toy areas, saw bunch of Hasbro and Lego stuff. We got to see a little bit of gaming. I know we typically talk about gaming a lot more, but there's a gaming presence there, and we got to see a few games, which we'll talk about in a bit. What else did we see? You got to check out the Star Wars Rebels cartoon.
Yep, we'll talk about that in a second. But the cool thing about a con, if you've been, you'll understand this, and if you've never been to one, you really have to do it because it's just an assault on the senses. With all of the booths, all of the things to see, all of the vendors, there's so much to see and to hear. There's, people walking around in costumes. There's a smell. You can also smell at a con. But there's just, like I said, there's so much going on, noise, stuff happening. It's really quite an environment. Now, we go on the Friday. It's a Thursday evening, Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. And really, the trick to a good con experience is to try and, check out what's happening event-wise and panel-wise that is a good fit for your interests, but also find out when it's going to be crazy, when are the good times. Sunday, for example, if you love shopping, go on a Sunday. You may not get the best selection, but that's when the bargains are to be had. Because if you go up to a vendor who's got a choice between taking a bunch of comics home or toys home or statues or whatever, or selling it to you and not having to pack it up in the car, they're going to cut you a deal.
Yeah.
So Friday for us is a good mix. You don't get all the weekend traffic. Like Saturday, will just be a monstrosity.
Oh.
So that's why we go on the Friday.
Yeah.
And you can get
It's
away
also
with...
more expensive too on a Saturday. Way more expensive on a Saturday.
So, and you can bring your kids. It's
Yes.
a lot easier to bring your kids when it's not insane like that.
Yeah. And it's hard enough managing with kids as it is with the crowd that's there on a Friday. I wouldn't even want to dare try to take them on a Saturday.
Yeah. But it's this one in particular, FanExpo Canada, Toronto, it's an event that it's just growing year after year, and it just, I think they're starting to run out of places to put things, but that's not the worst thing in the world. It's a good sign of success, and you can still move around and enjoy it. So let's talk about what we did enjoy today.
Besides sitting in line, buying a lot of things, we got to play a few games even. One of the ones we got to check out was Disney Infinity 2.0, and Malcolm, my middle son, who's just turned 7, Malcolm was playing it for quite some time while you got to stand in line with my oldest son for a little contest selfie picture thingy, and just. And you know what? I got a sense seeing it really live in person that it's so much different than Disney Infinity 1 was, where Disney Infinity 1 was kind of maybe a little bit disjointed. It was they focused on the toy box a lot, obviously. Yeah, they had the pre-canned stuff. This was a superhero adventure. Watching him play. Now Malcolm is a free spirit. He was quite happy to just hurt civilians in cars and pick up people and throw them and just do silly goofy things like that, all with a smile on his face, all with big laughs and whatnot. But you could see that this is more of a and that's what they're going for, I think, with 2.0 is the more robust superhero type adventure. And man, they had all sorts of figures out there. I got shots of like not just like the guys we know about, but I saw Guardians of the Galaxy figures there. He was playing with Spider-Man for a while. Just a large number of superheroes. There's going to be a lot of figures available for this.
Yeah, which is both exciting and very, very scary, because the Marvel universe is huge, and when Marvel can pull off a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy that features characters that the average Marvel fan has never heard of, and they can make it the biggest movie of the summer, and thus a whole bunch of new characters to go into games. That's kind of a scary thing for our wallets. The one thing that I'm really looking forward to is the sandbox mode, or the toy box mode, because that's really where my kids ended up spending most of their time. And maybe if the gameplay is a little bit more compelling, they'll do more there. But they really like just building levels. And I found that with the level editor that was there, like one of the basic things, like it wouldn't automatically create terrain for you. So my kids, when they were trying to figure this out, they were just putting stuff floating in space because they weren't bothering to build ground. Mm-hmm. So there was definitely some room for improvement that I hope they can do. And when you look at the gameplay itself, Lego Marvel Superheroes and Lego Batman 2 and presumably Lego Batman 3, which you'll get to in a minute, mm-hmm. They've really given us a great template for how to make a fantastic, superhero adventure game that is all ages friendly. So I don't think they have to reinvent the wheel with Disney Infinity. They just have to look to what's already been done that really, really, really works and go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we mentioned Lego Batman 3, and we got to play it just towards the end of the day as we were like starting to wind down and get really tired and trying to beat the rush out. But I played with my youngest for a little bit. We just got sort of wandering around in the overworld because we didn't know how to get to the levels, but it didn't matter. We were just fiddling around with things. And meanwhile, Owen and Malcolm, my two oldest, were playing on another machine, and I was watching them play. They were having a good old time. And Lego games, they're always, what you're gonna get, and they're gonna be fun. And sure enough, they were like just sitting there having a grand old time playing. Malcolm even came and said, yeah, after a while we just start beating up each other, which, you can just sort of break off into that if you want, right?
And they always add new wrinkles to it. So, we're going from Lego Batman 2. Now they're adding, we're going to different planets now.
Yeah, I saw a lot of different game modes on display, actually. Like different, just weird, different futuristic kind of stuff. Some shooting levels, like almost look like twin stick shooter kind of stuff. They seem to be adding more gameplay wrinkles to kind of mix things up a little bit more than your typical platform beat 'em up.
Well, I think one of the things they've added too is those flying shooting levels that are kind of modeled after, is it Resogun?
Yeah.
The PlayStation launch title.
Yeah.
That, one of those Mixels kind of games, lots of particle physics and stuff blowing up all over the place. But that same idea of making kind of a scrolling shooter that keeps you in one location and you just keep going around in a circle, essentially. Mm-hmm. Tons of characters that are going to be there. I think 200 or something, like just a ridiculous amount was at one point they were talking. And then different planets. You're going to have all of the different lantern cores. So they're really deep diving into the sort of galactic version of the DC universe. So yeah, needless to say, we're both quite excited to play that, and I'm glad your kids enjoyed it today.
Yeah, it was good to see it in action finally. And one more game I'll touch on quick, just because it's kind of more of a funny story than anything else. We're walking through, just sort of walking by the booth, and we walk by the Ubisoft booth. And all of a sudden I hear, what does the fox say? And I'm looking up and like there it is on Just Dance 2015. A bunch of people dancing up on stage with that. I saw them do the Tetris theme. There's some weird songs that are going to be in Just Dance 2015 this year, and I saw kids up on stage dancing along to it. My kids are like, they see it like, wow, Just Dance, like that, cool. That song's gonna be on there. I love that song. You probably don't need us to tell you that Just Dance 2015 will probably sell a lot of copies, but it's nice to see they're adding kind of some more quirky stuff that the kids may recognize. And like the Tetris song was even like people were dancing and making Tetris blocks and Tetris rows, which is kind of funny.
Cool. And of course, I also heard Ariana Grande as I was walking by, so you're gonna have your top pop hits as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's pretty much a foolproof game. Yeah. And if you like rhythm dance games, especially if you have like an Xbox One with Kinect that you never use, like I do, this might be dust it off because the kids are going to be dancing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what we saw for gaming content. There was a lot of mature stuff there, obviously. Like, the Microsoft booth was full of M&T rated games. Same thing with the PlayStation booth. Didn't get a chance to see Little Big Planet 3, unfortunately. The lines are pretty brutal for that one. WB was there. Like, obviously there was a lot of, mature stuff, which we won't get into. But, there was a lot of graphics and sound bombarding us the whole time we were there.
Needless to say, fall, spring, going to be busy. Going to be fun.
Yeah, and it's going to be expensive too. You got to finally. We'll touch on something you got to see from the cartoon world, and that was something you were looking forward to, which is saying something considering that you typically aren't a fan of anything that isn't original trilogy Star Wars, but you got to see Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah. I'll give you the quick 10-second history. I loved Star Wars growing up. The original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, pretty much killed Star Wars for me. But as my son has now gotten older, he's 5, and for his 5th birthday, it was all about Star Wars. So that's kind of pulled me back into it, and it's exciting. So, I even, God help me for saying this, I watched The Phantom Menace with him and kind of enjoyed it. It's still a terrible movie with so many problems. But, it was great because I could see it through his eyes, and that made a real difference. But so this is the new animated series that's going to be launching in October is Star Wars Rebels, and it's by the same folks that did the Clone Wars, which was just a fantastic series. Given the kind of the limitations that they were working with, being placed between movie 2 and 3, they made a fantastic show out of it. Rebels has a little bit more freedom because it takes place in an era that really hasn't been explored very much in Star Wars lore. And that's between when the Empire took over the galaxy and Star Wars A New Hope, when Luke Skywalker rises and begins that trilogy of movies. I was a little worried looking at the characters initially that it might skew a little too much like a group of plucky teenagers. Sort of that Scooby-Doo model. Mm-hmm. I can say after watching the pilot, it's an hour-long episode. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a good show. It had great action. It had humor. The characters were interesting and compelling. And the best part was, this felt like that good kind of Star Wars. They've pushed it ahead in the timeline just enough that, they've replaced the droid armies and the clones with TIE fighters and stormtroopers, and we're getting, Star Destroyers. So this looked like the old school Star Wars that I grew up with and that I want my son to be able to love. So it's getting, it's going to get people primed up for the new movie coming next year, but on its own, I think the potential is there for just an outstanding show, and I hope they can live up to it. But again, looking at the Clone Wars, the people, it's the same folks, they can get there.
Cool. So yeah, I think it sounds like something my kids are going to want to watch eventually too, because they're starting to get into the Star Wars thing themselves.
And buy the toys, and buy the Lego sets,
yeah, yes.
And buy the books.
Oh, we already bought the Lego sets, I think, today, didn't we?
Yeah, there was a FanExpo exclusive microfigure set from Lego, and it was a lot more expensive than the Lego sets that we would just go buy at the store.
Yeah,
but we'll just leave it at that.
Con exclusive.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll wrap this up for now. That's a taste of what we saw today, some of the main stuff. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you again real soon.